Good morning everyone. In this session today we will study about the reign of terror. That means the rule of terror. What is the rule of terror? As we know that in the last class we studied about Louis XVI was sentenced to death. Monarchy was abolished in France. So Louis XVI was sentenced to death by a court on the charge of treason. That means what he betrayed the kingdom or country, so that the court sentenced him to death. On 21st January 1793 he was executed publicly at the place de la Concorde. That means a place at de la Concorde. He was publicly executed. He was killed publicly. The Queen Mary Antoinette of Louis XVI, she also met with the same fate shortly later. Later on she also was killed in such a way. But now the reign of terror starts. We know that people were eagerly waiting that after the monarchy entered, people felt that there will be a democratic republic will be established in France. Now the period from 1793, okay, 1793 to 1794, this period was referred as a period of terror or reign of terror. So this is the rule of terror. That means we have already studied Robespierre was the leader of the people who agitated against the monarchy or the ruler. Now Robespierre followed a policy of severe control and punishment. Those who turned against him were completely tortured or punished and even killed also. So Robespierre's policy was complete control over control and punishment of the who were the people who were opposing him. So all who were here the enemies of Robespierre. That means who were opposing. That means who were the people, the enemies of Robespierre, or they were considered as the enemies of republic. Who, example, we can say the noble people who were all lost all the privileges. Noble or clergy. Clergy means the church officials. They all lost their power or privileges. Then other members of the political parties, who were the members of other political parties, even from his own party, those people opposed or could not agree with his methods. These all people were considered as enemies of Robespierre. They were arrested, imprisoned, and then tried to different way. They were tried in a different way how can be tortured or punished. These all revolutionaries who were opposing Robespierre all were captured, arrested, and imprisoned, etc. So, if the court found them guilty, then when they were taken to the court feels that they are guilty. They were all here. They were all in a different way. They killed or executed, or they were known as the guillotine. They were guillotined. That means a system of killing or death sentence existed in this region. We know that the guillotine was a device, which was consisted of two poles, standing two poles. In between there is a blade was kept. A blade means a knife or blade, something was kept there, and with that blade the person was beheaded, keeping the head, neck in between these two poles and upon the blade. So he was killed in such a way. That is called guillotine or guillotined. The spelling is Guillotin, guillotine, not the guillotine. Often we say guillotine. Blades are available in the same brand, guillotine brand. It is not guillotine, it is guillotine. So the people who were opposing were captured and guillotined in such a way. It was the people were killed. How the name of this machine was got guillotine is it was named after Dr. Guillotine who invented it. Dr. Guillotine, who invented this machine so that it got its name. We know that Robespierre's government issued laws placing a maximum ceiling on wages and prices also. They controlled the complete wages and prices and increased the price of goods also. Meat and bread, that we know that they were the common food of people, that commonly people consumed meat and bread. This was rationed. Rationed means limited, particular quantity of goods only, food grains only will be supplied to one person or one family or how many members even though are they in the families. We know that complete control of even the food also was taken by the government. We know that peasants who were cultivating these food grains were forced to transport their food grains into the cities and sell at the prices fixed permanently there. Fixed by the government there. Okay, government fixes the price of goods, whether it is loss or profit. The farmers or the peasants had to transport all their food grains to the towns and cities, and they had to sell at the cost what the government has fixed. So the use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. So all people could not use the white flour also, which was very costly, and also the citizens this period required to eat the pain de galette, that means the equality bread. Okay, pain de galette means equality of bread, that means everybody does not. Now we know that how much we want we can buy and eat from the market, the food grains, if we have money, but it was rationed, and there all people were had equal quantity of bread was supplied. Loaf of made of whole wheat, the bread how much is prepared, or each family, or according to the number of members, each family was given particular quantity of bread and meat only, not more than that. Even though we have more money, we cannot buy more food also. So equality was also sought to practice through the forms of speech and addresses also. All people were considered equal. That was one important point. But the food also was supplied equally, not more or less. Instead of traditional monsieur that they used to call the person as sir in English, equal to that monsieur or madam. Okay, so this type of all French men and women henceforth, they were all considered equal. No upper classes or no lower classes, no extra respect were given to any particular persons. All were considered as citoyen and citoyenne. That means all were considered as citizens of the country. Churches were shut down. We know that all clergy lost their privileges. Clergymen or priests all lost their privileges. Nobles lost their privileges. All were considered equal citizens. So churches were closed down. Their buildings were converted into barracks or offices. These churches or offices were made into government offices or the military or army barracks. During this period is, we know that the Robespierre's period was known as the reign of terror, period of terror or rule of terror. Robespierre pursued his policies so that even his supporters began to demand moderation. Even not all the people could support him. Even his own supporters, his own party members also many of the times opposed him. They also demanded for a change or moderation. Finally, he was also convicted by a court in July 1794, and Robespierre also was convicted by a court in July 1794, and he was arrested. On the next day, he was also sent to guillotine. That means he was also killed. So this period 1793 to 94 was the period known as the period or reign of terror. So here what happens after the death of Robespierre? Now the fall of the Jacobin governments also allowed the wealthier middle class to seize power. When Robespierre's government was fallen, so it was formed, we know that Jacobin clubs or Jacobin members organized clubs, and Robespierre was their leader, and he became the ruler of France. Here we know that. So here, when this government was fallen, the wealthier middle class who were wealthier, they seized power. Now some changes occurs here. New constitution was introduced which denied the vote to non-propertied sections of society. When these people, wealthier classes, secured power, they changed the constitution. New constitution was prepared here. They denied the vote to non-propertied sections of society. That means only again the same rule coming back, same law coming back, that only those who own property will be given the right to vote. So it provided for two elected legislative councils also. Two elected legislative councils were there. So then they appointed a directory and executive and made up of 5 members. That was the new changes they made. Also this was meant for the safeguard against the concentration of power in one main executive as under the Jacobins. One main executive was there. That means during the Jacobins, Robespierre handled all the powers. So instead of that, they changed here the appointed an executive made up of 5 members. Okay, so the directors also often clashed with the legislative council, who then sought to dismiss them. That was another problem. The political instability of the directory paved the way for the rise of military dictator Napoleon Bonaparte. So because of all these problems and Napoleon Bonaparte, he was forming the government with a military as a military dictator. Okay, so he also sought to get power, concentration of all the powers vested in him. So through these changes in the form of government, the ideals of freedom, equality before law and fraternity remained inspiring ideals that motivated the political movements. So France and the rest of Europe during the following century, all these ideals, fraternity, freedom, equality before law, these all principles were also spread all over the Europe. So France gives an example that all these ideals were spread all over Europe. We know that women did not have any right to vote there. So that women start in Europe, and especially in France, start a revolution to adult suffrage, so that or universal suffrage. So that next class we will study how the women revolted against the government.